Hello everyone, a very good evening to all of you. So I'm so sorry for this slight delay. Yeah, not ma'am, I'm sir here. Good evening, Rani. Okay, Manika ma'am will definitely be with us sooner or later. So we are gonna quickly start with and just quickly revise. Till then, let us also wait for others to join. Yeah? So in last class we have talked about this topic of, let's say, in our last class we have talked about this, what is this language here. Yeah? So we have talked about what is this language, what is the concept of language, what is this basic. And when we talked about this basic, we tried to summarize what is a lexeme. Okay, we tried to summarize what is a lexeme, what is a morpheme, how there are two kinds of morpheme, that is free morpheme and bound morpheme. Yeah, so these kind of questions are very much prominent in your NET and JRF examination. So also when we talk about this syntax, yes, what is the syntax? Syntax is how these morphemes are arranged in a particular way with all those structures that are there, also called the grammar. Now this grammar, when we talk about a famous theory that we are also going to discuss in today's class, that is Noam Chomsky's. Now these questions, for example, like the natural, that theory of natural acquisition of language, these kind of questions are very much important. For example, when we talk about Baobab theory, for example, when we talk about poo-poo theory, yeah, yo-he-ho theory. So these kind of theory emerged which argues how at a different point of time, through different means and through different modes, language evolved itself out of. Yeah, so these kind of argument that we have seen, and also we will try to discuss in today's class. Now also we will try to approach through those scientific methods, for example like audiolingual method, for example like situational approach, how these approaches, for example the famous one, very much favorite for NTA, we can say here, that is the grammar translation method. Yeah, very much important and very much favorite topic also for them. So one or two questions that you definitely encounter from what we are gonna cover in today's class. Yeah, so stay tuned here, watch till this end what we are going to discuss. Okay, we will also try to discuss, let's say tomorrow and the last class, which will be dedicated to this language and pedagogy. So we will try to cover some questions, for example like based upon what is pidgin, what is slang, what is register, what is creole, okay, what is idiolect, what is sociolect. These kind of terms are also very much prominent and important when we talk about this language and pedagogy. One or two questions definitely are from this part. That's why it is also very much important to cover these parts very carefully, because if you want to score, if you want to tick mark those two questions correctly, you need to be careful while covering these kind of units, because they have a limited set of questions. Now if you understand what is a pidgin, then definitely no matter how much twist they they twist the concept, the answer will always can be, the answer always will be comprehended through all those understanding that we developed. Yeah, good evening JRF Pallavi, good evening. So in today's class we are gonna just quickly see here, and let us quickly also see that we have in our yesterday's class tried to understand that how language through its verbal, through its written format are also defined where we talked about the Saussurean idea of sign signifier, and signified how language is arbitrary, how language is relational. There is no kind of relationship, just a kind of referent. And in that sense we also have talked about the kind of images that we have, for example indexicon symbol that are there, and I say iconic symbol. So these kind of questions are also very much important when we talk about this language and its theory that also revolves around that literary theory and criticism per se. We have also covered these lectures in our, let's say, batch life. On YouTube live we are gonna cover sooner or later, but on batch life we have covered all those. So if you want to access, definitely you can have a look to that. Yeah, so these kind of understanding we have developed also, that what is a morpheme, what is phoneme, and what is a lexeme when we talk about this morpheme, bound morpheme or the free morpheme. For example in breakable, yeah, in breakable, this able word that is here, this is called the free morpheme because it is a morpheme which is having a complete meaning on its own. So these kind of argument we have tried to discuss in our yesterday's class. Yeah, so in today's class we will quickly skip through these slides which we have covered. For example, we have also discussed about this universal grammar, that how Noam Chomsky taught about that these languages, these set of rules that are there in any kind of language, whether it it be L1, let's say the primary language or the native language, or L2, the language that a learner try to acquire. So this acquisition of language is always attached through that native language, because it is the first language that any human being or any child is exposed to. Yeah. So on that notion, we have another theory, that is how this learning process is also becomes important. Yeah. So this learning process and the learner, this natural approach, for example, we will also see the kind of method where a teacher and let's say a teacher and a student interact with each other, and those interaction are whether it can be in a written form or it can be in a verbal form. So these kind of dialogues, these kind of conversation that are also very much important from JRF perspective. So that's what are the important issues that we are going to discuss. Yeah. Rani says there is no natural connection between linguistics form and its meaning. Yeah, definitely. So linguistic argues, for example, it also argues on the basis of phenomenology, something that is not there. It tries to also understand that phenomena when we talk about this language. Now this language always, you know, has always been a lot of interest to so many intellectual scholars. Yeah, reason being because whenever we try to say something, let's say for example, the famous concept of arc writing developed by Derrida. Now these concepts of arc writing also very much, you know, it was asked previously in your NET examination that who propounded this concept of arc writing. It is Derrida, and while he was discussing that how oral language, how in oral culture and also in written culture, the oral culture is given upper hand. Now the reason for giving upper hand to the oral culture, because there is an audience there is a proof, there is a truth that something is being uttered. Now when Derrida argues that no, it is not the matter, reason being because let's say if there is a text, it also has a reader which has so many voices, and these voices are interpreted through the understanding that a reader has. So these both, let's say, are not different, but both are dependent upon each other, one through oral culture and one through written culture. So these kind of developments surrounding around this language and pedagogy becomes also very much important. Now later on we will also try to discuss that how these language also evolves and sometimes comes into the mainstream, and that's how the culture gets also its definition. For example, if you have a look to the history just before 1 year or 2 years, you definitely would have noticed the kind of influence the Punjabi theatre and the Punjabi music was on the Bollywood culture. Yeah, so those kind of era also, you know, periodically revises itself. Now it is a kind of era where Tamil movies, for example, like Tamil cinema, Tollywood enjoys so much, you know, privilege when we talk about the movies, for example, the masterpiece that are being produced recently. So these kind of also are a much interest to the kind of scholars that are there, and on one question that you definitely will encounter from there. Yeah, so this universal grammar theory by Noam Chomsky, then later on we also have seen that how through these four methods, listening, speaking, reading and writing, we always communicate. It is a medium, it is a base through which we always try to form a structure. Now those structure has different kind of connotations. That's not our primary concern here. We have discussed about it when we were talking about the language theory, the cultural study in our bachelor. Yeah, so also you can have a look to that YouTube lecture earlier conducted on YouTube. You will find it under the playlist, reader response criticism. So when we talk about this four method, listening, speaking, reading and writing, these are the methods through which, and also in paper 1 you have kind of seen these kind of argument. We definitely taught to you all by Manika ma'am, where she definitely talked about that how language is a complete process, and it is not complete until and unless the receiver encodes the message, decodes the message, again encodes the message and reply to the message that is there through a medium, through a transmitter. This is the complete cycle that is there. So this complete cycle is this listening, speaking, reading and writing. These are the forms through which these languages are decoded sooner or later. Yeah, JRF Pallav, communication. Okay, so we have also discussed regarding that. Now we have to start from here, these theories of language acquisition. Now these theories of language acquisition is very much important. Now reason being because it is a theory which was developed by B.F. Skinner. Now when we talk about this B.F. Skinner, we also have a kind of theorist, for example, like Ivan Pavlov. Yeah, Ivan Pavlov. Both of these critics argues on the same ground that whenever we talk about the language or the uses of language or the development of language, we always talk about how an individual interacts with its surrounding. Let's say, for example, if let's say any child demands, let's say if any child says chocolate. Now some person provides him. Now from later on, he thinks that whenever he will utter this word, definitely he will be given a kind of reward for that relation. Now even Pavlov went further and he argues the kind of behavior that he observed, for example, in dog. And from here, he coined a term, this classical conditioning. One time it was asked in your examination that what is classical conditioning? This classical conditioning is kind of manipulation of a behavior by controlling the entire process through, or we can say by using a medium just to influence the behavior in any certain pattern. Okay, so this kind of definition that is there of classical conditioning, where he tried to understand the behavior of a dog, and he argues that whenever you whistle and you give a treat to the dog first time, he will sooner or later repeat the same act whenever you will whistle, in a hope that he will be also rewarded with the same thing. And let's say he didn't like the reward, he won't adapt these kind of behavior. So this is the argument. Yeah, it is also in research aptitude. So these kind of argument that classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov, he argues in his theory. So behaviorism also by B.F. Skinner, which says that the behavior of a child always determines what kind of language that he will acquire. Let's say if there is an introvert kind of person, an extrovert, that extrovert person will be fluent in so many languages, but an introvert person, he will be, though he can be fluent, but he will always remain within himself. It will also interact and influence the behavior that particular individual will have. So this is the first theory, the language acquisition. Language acquisition means how language is acquired. The first method is through its behavior, how you are responding to your environment, what are the rewards that are associated with that kind of behavior. Okay, let's say for example, if there is a child and by mistake he places his hand on a hot pan, he definitely won't repeat these kind of behavior. Okay, so this is the behaviorism explained by B.F. Skinner. Please do not forget this detail. Clear everyone till now? Everyone clear? Quickly say yes or no. Okay, so they will give you one question that what pick the odd one out when we try to define or when we try to discuss the concept of behaviorism. Now they can give you 3 or 4 options. For example, it was introduced by B.F. Skinner. Pavlov also introduced the term later on by explaining classical conditioning. It is also the molding of behavior, yeah, by giving certain kind of award or reward per se. Okay, and fourth one can be any incorrect option. So you need to familiarize yourself with these kind of concept that is there. Yeah, so let us quickly move on to the next one, that is universal grammar by Noam Chomsky. Now Noam Chomsky definitely doesn't agree with whatsoever B.F. Skinner and even Pavlov try to define. Now according to Noam Chomsky, it is not like that. There is a kind of structure that is inherent in an individual, and that structure is noun verb, the kind of structure which makes that particular language. Yes, which language had to be put into. Okay, so this kind of definition given by universal, let's say by Noam Chomsky, universal grammar, a kind of system which is innate, we can say here, a kind of system, language as a system defined by, let's say, by deconstructionist and the post-structuralist critique. So when we talk about this language, according to Noam Chomsky, this language is innate, and this innate is the grammar. This innate is how noun and verb, noun or pronoun, will combine with each other in order to form a meaningful sentence. Yeah, so this kind of definition was given by Noam Chomsky in his, while he was theorizing this universal grammar. It is innate, it is biological. Yeah, how to combine this noun and a verb category. Yeah, and he also said that these things are inherently present. It means it is present by virtue of being a living being, not particularly a human being, but animals. For example, the mewing of a cow. Yeah, so these kind of language that he tried to develop on let's say on these premises. Yeah, if you want to take a screenshot, definitely you can take it now. Otherwise, you will also get a PDF. You just need to do it that you just go through that Play Store, download the IFAS app from there. Okay, and click through that free resources, paper 2 English. You will find this PDF there along with explanation. Okay, so now quickly we will move on to the next one, that is the Locke's tabula rasa or the blank state. Now this theorist, for example, like John Locke, we all know that John Locke is a philosopher who is from Enlightenment. Yeah? So in this Enlightenment, we also have very famous example which I often reiterates, that is the example of Benjamin Franklin. Yeah, the example of Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin was born very poor, but due to his intelligence, due to his intellect, he transcended his position in his society. Yeah, and that's when he commented that a human being can transcend, human being can transform his life according just by using his intellect, his mind, or a particular term that you need to remember here, that is the reason. This reason word has a deep connection with this idea of enlightenment or the Renaissance when we talk about. Yeah, so these kind of, yeah, very good run, it's enlightenment. Yeah, so these kind of idea, when Locke or when we Locke talk about this tabula rasa, he's not just saying that mind is a blank state, rather he's also commenting upon and also agreeing with Benjamin Franklin that human being is a kind of animal which through his experience, through his acquiring that process, through his experiences that are out there, can define himself. Yeah, so these kind of argument, these are the grounds on which this Locke talks about an idea that all knowledge comes through outside, yeah, ourselves, through the sensory experience, these experiences that we have, for example, like sight, for example, like sense, smell, hearing. Yeah, so these kind of argument are there when we talk about the development of language by this Locke's tabula rasa. Yeah, so they can ask questions revolving around these kind of concepts. Please do keep in mind. Now the next one that we need to discuss, that is Stephen Cresson monetary model. Now this is very important. They asked about this question, yeah, that what are the key features of Stephen Cresson's model. This is a very important model on which the entire theory of language acquisition, for example, premises upon. Let's say, according to Stephen Cresson, let's say when I write something on a blackboard, not blackboard but on a PC, personal computer. Now when you are using MS Word, you definitely would have encountered this kind of zigzag line whenever you have written something incorrect. Yeah, so what is this? It means that there is a kind of structure that is already placed there. If you are not adhering to all those rules that is there, you definitely are wrong. There is a red mark there. So this is the Stephen Cresson's model, that if any person try to learn any language apart from L1, there is a kind of system. That system works like PC, the monitor, which always tries to relate itself with the native language, or we can say not only native language but also by other name, this L1 language. And this PC will try to improvise this L1 language into the desired language, that is the L2. For example, English, Russian, Germany, anything you can say here. So we have so many examples that are also revolving around these concepts. For example, when we talk about this famous example of TOEFL, yeah, TOEFL, yeah, this British Lingua also conducts one examination in order to check how much fluent you are in English. Yeah, so these all are kind of model that Stephen Cresson, and these are also very much prominent when we talk about the the method of education or the mode of education in our present world. So when we will try to discuss all these kind of models later upon, for example, like natural order or a kind of learned order, then we will discuss that how CBSE board or the English medium school also uses these kind of methods in their contemporary education. That's why questions from these parts becomes very much important. Yeah, so now let us quickly just review that this theory of this Stephen Cresson gave this theory of input hypothesis. It means you are trying to input something and it is trying to give you a result. Yeah, so for example, let's say you type the spelling, let's say by mistake, this model as let's say you want to write MODEL here, but by mistake, let's say if you write MODEL, that system won't show the red zigzag line here. Okay, it will also not show in this one. So there is a kind of limitation to the language that we have talked about in our yesterday's classroom. Yeah, like language lab established in colleges. Yeah, very good. That audiolingual method, like grammar translation or a kind of situational approach, a verbal interactive approach. Yeah, So also these kind of theory that Stephen Krishnan developed, that this L1 language is the native language, this L2 language is the target language, not only English but any language, Russian, French, any language you can say here, and that acquired language will be learned by placing this L1 language into the system, and this system will try to interpret that particular word that is there in order to understand what can be the meaning. For example, in Google, if you write something word in English and you translate into Hindi, what you are doing, you are inputting something. You are inputting, let's say L1. Okay, let's say L1 is English in your case, then you are inputting L1 English here, and the system will try to convert it into Hindi. So this is the method that Stephen Krishnan developed, and that's why it is also very much important. There are 4 steps. For example, acquisition learning hypothesis. Acquisition means the L1 language, the native language that you learn. Monitor hypothesis, it means you try to place or input your vocabulary, your word into a particular system, and that system will show you whether you are right or you're wrong. Okay, also called the monitor method. Now this natural order hypothesis, it is a kind of, let's say, a native language through which a child progresses in his day-to-day life. Yeah, for example, let's say in any native culture, a child is being brought up through all those symbolic languages, but that symbolic language is a part of native culture, a culture that is there for so many years, a culture that has been preserved, yeah, according to cultural study. So these kind of theory that Stephen Krishnan also discussed, this affective filter theories. According to this theory, affective means what? Affective means thinking, and thinking filter means you will only kind of absorb only those languages, only those languages to which you will align yourself with. So this is the kind of theory that Stephen Krishnan developed. You need also to keep in mind, this is the important theory. Please do not forget this one. Am I clear till this point? Any question, anything that you want to ask? Quickly say yes or no. Any question? So this Stephen Krishnan, the key takeaway here is this language acquisition. Yeah, and this language acquisition through interplay between L1 and L2. Clear, everyone? Clear? Now shall we move further? Now let us quickly move on to the next one, that is the first language theory. Okay, Stephen Krishnan stressed the similarities between learning the first and the second languages. Yeah, you can say that. So now the first language theory, that is Bao theory. Yeah, also NTA asked one question in year 2021, that what is Bao theory. So you also need to remember these kind of theories that are very much important. Now you can notice the first word that is written down here, the first language theory. Okay, so this first language theory means how any individual learned or learns any kind of language. For example, let's say this Bao theory says that human being tried to understand any kind of language, or language evolved out of any kind of sound system. Okay, any kind of sound system that resembles the sound of birds and animals. Yeah? Resembles the sound of birds and animals. For example, in other words, you can say here this onomatopoeia. Okay, onomatopoeia. So this onomatopoeia here is the Bao theory, that the language that are spoken by any animal, any kind of language that is there, yeah, characteristic sound. Okay, so in other words, we also have this second theory, this yo-yo theory, which argues that whenever human being was engaged in any kind of physical labor, the kind of rhythm that they produced, from there this L1 language emerged. Okay, so this is the theory of yo theory, that whenever any human being was immersed in any kind of physical behavior, then the kind of language, the kind of sound that they must have used is the basis of the emergence of any kind of language. Yeah, so quickly take a screenshot. We are gonna just have a quick look to, because these questions can be asked in your match the column form. Yeah, there will be one question, they will give you Baba theory, imitation of sound, Yo-Yo theory, imitation of the physical action. Yeah, very good, Rani. So these kind of questions will be prominent. Take a screenshot, and now we will quickly move on to the next theory, that is ding dong theory. Now ding dong theory argues that any kind of sound that were, any kind of sound that let's say originated out of, let's say there is a kind of object that is there, okay, and the kind of sound that this object will make, okay, the kind of sound that this object will make is from where we have seen the kind of emergence of language, okay, emergence of L1. Okay, the first language, ding dong means the kind of sound that the particular object produced from where we have developed our natural language. Okay, so this is ding dong theory. For example, when you beat a drum, okay, the kind of language, the kind of voice, the kind of sound that it produces is also very much similar to the kind of word that is referred in, let's say, that is referred in English language. Okay, for example, he was beating the drum. Okay, he was beating the drum. Let's say when you say that the bees were humming, so this humming is a sound there. Mystical resonance or harmony, correct? Yeah, very good. So the next one, Lala theory. Lala theory states that whenever human being felt the need for music, from there we have seen the emergence of L1 language. Okay, from, let's say, whenever human being felt that there is a kind of language that is needed in order to produce these musical sounds. So this is called the Lala theory. Next one is Tata theory. T for Tata, T for tongue. It means, let's say, the famous theory of linguistics where we talk about this bilabial sound, glottal sound. Remember that nasal sound, a part of linguistic study that we sometimes study there. Yeah, it was a part of my syllabi when I was in my DU masters. So this linguistic is very much interesting. Whenever we try to define the word according to the kind of sound they produce, and also at the same time how they are producing. For example, whether it is bilabial, it means whenever the tongue touches the upper lip and the lower lip, the bilabial sound. Okay, so lips, that is there. Yeah, love poetic. So this is the Tata theory, love poetic for Lala theory. Yeah, so this Tata theory says that whenever human being uttered those words or any kind of sound with the help of his tongue, from where we have seen the emergence of L1 language. Okay, the next one is poo-poo theory. Poo-poo theory argues that any kind of sound that whenever human being produced, let's say for example when he was growling, or in other words, whenever human being felt any kind of pain, any kind of emotions, from there the language emerged. For example, when you say ah-h, yeah, when you say hooray, when you say alas, alas. So these kind of languages that you utter, and these kind of feeling, these are the emotions that you have. Okay, and you try to express it through language. This is the poo-poo theory. Okay, this is the theory that let's say poo-poo theory argues. Any doubt? If you want to take screenshot, let us quickly revise here. Let us quickly revise. Ding dong means the kind of sound the object will make. This is the ding dong theory. Okay, Lala theory, whenever language emerged out of the human being felt the need for music. Okay, next one, Tata theory. T for Tata, T for tongue. Whenever human being moved his tongue, a kind of language produced, and from there we have seen the emergence of this L1 language. Now next one, poo-poo theory, which says the emotions that human being felt in order to express that kind of language. We can say the emergence of, yeah, sounds like Winnie the Pooh. So these kind of questions are very much frequent in your examination. Please do remember these kind of details. Any doubts so far? Take a screenshot if you want to take a note if you want to, whatsoever you want to do. Please do not skip these kind of details, because you can easily score the number. You can easily score. Also, So those people who will attend classes tomorrow of that rapid fire will definitely realize how much important today's and yesterday's class was. Yeah. So goodbye with your tongue. Okay, so let us now quickly move on to the since you are having no doubts, let us quickly move on to the next one. Now before moving on, if you are not a part of batch live, let us quickly guide you through. Let's say this is the interface. You will find, let's say if you want a PDF of this classroom, this YouTube, you just need to simply do one thing. Go to the Play Store, or you can scan, you can also visit the website, you can download this IFAS app. Okay, and after downloading IFAS app, you will come through this particular interface. Okay, this particular interface, you will have UGC Net English, UGC Net paper 1. Okay, you have here, okay, you have here free video, free study material. So in free study material, when you will click, you will find the section there that is the PDF. Okay, so you will find the PDF there. You can also attend those questions that are there in order to earn something, in order to win some kind of scholarship. Yeah, sir, kaun sa chapter hoga? Rapid fire, language and pedagogy. Yeah, that's why I always say that. Or dekhiye jab bhi aap batch live join karenge, you will have these kind of interface. Yeah, separate modules for everything, just for your ease, along with the handouts, the DPP, per day 5 questions for practice. You will also get let's say the PDF, weekly test, the explanation, any kind of doubts that you have. And let's say if you're from English, then definitely you will have the privilege of one-to-one. Yeah, so if you're not a part of English, you definitely can click on those link also in your comment box, that is Instagram. We also post one question there. You can also revise on a regular basis through that question. You will also find the link of Telegram, where you will be informed whether any class is scheduled there or not. Okay, so you will also get the link of Telegram in the description box. Kindly go click on the link if you don't want to miss. Yes, language and linguistics ka rapid fire hoga. Okay, so if you are not a part of this, you can become a part of it. And also these people from JRF batch live, they can definitely understand what I'm trying to say here. Yeah, so moving further, now we will talk about this kind of the another method which is also very much important, and a question which is very much important from the net perspective, because they have asked questions from this grammar translation method very frequently. And the grammar translation method कुछ नहीं है, बहुत easy word में अगर समझा जाए इसे, let's say if we switch to this language Hindi now, तो अगर इसे हम कहा जाए grammar translation method, then we all have been through our, let's say, primary education, secondary and senior secondary education. Yeah, so when we were in primary education, there was a kind of book that was included in our syllabi, and that syllabi was that book of grammar. Remember that book of grammar that was a part of our syllabi. Now when this modern technological innovations happened, when we switched, this grammar book is replaced by this practice workbook. But there is one thing that is there, and that is practice workbook. Now when we talk about this grammar translation method, now what we did in our primary and pre-primary or secondary, what we did, we simply, there was a kind of sentence that is there, we needed to translate into Hindi. When I was in my primary and pre-primary, this was the kind of grammar book that was prescribed to us. Something was written in English, we needed to translate into Hindi, and something was written in Hindi, we needed to translate it into English. And whenever we correct all those translations, then we were awarded full marks there. So this is the grammar translation. Sir, Instagram पे 59 का आंसर नहीं आया है. Okay, technical team, if you are here also watching the comment, kindly go through and scroll the question number 59. Kindly post the answer. Yeah, I will quickly have a look to this matter after this class. Now, so this is the grammar translation method. Now it originated when we all know, we have talked about it in our batch lab, that how Renaissance, or let's say the period of enlightenment that was there, and we have seen an initiation phase just from the Elizabethan age. We have discussed in our today's class only. Okay, so this grammar translation method was invented when Renaissance was, Renaissance was there in, let's say, in Italy, in France, and from there we have borrowed, from Italy we have borrowed, and the language of Italy is Latin. So there was a kind of fight between French and English, this Britain kingdom that was there, and due to that fight, this Latin, lost its prominence, because the nationalistic feeling that Elizabeth aroused amongst the people, it all created a kind of an environment where people were so much patriotic. They were so much patriotic. So when they became patriotic, we also knew that during Elizabethan age, when we have a look to the literacy level, the illiteracy was very much prominent, and also city was not so much clean. The filthy attitude was there. 4 times the England was hit by that Black Death, and we have discussed all kind of details in our batch live, and since due to limitations we cannot discuss that here. So you can also we will definitely discuss that later on. So when we talk about this grammar translation method, it was invented when Latin language lost its importance due to the let's say the influence of the loosening influence of the French language or the Latin language against the nationalistic feeling. So that's when this grammar translation method was introduced, where people was confronted with learning those set of rules through which they can communicate. So from there we have seen the origination of this grammar translation method. And this focus now shifted to English due to Renaissance, or we can say due to the Enlightenment age. So this principle is, the principle here is, you need to read and write consistently. For example, this translation method was a part of my examination, my curriculum. Now L1 is used, just like I said here, that something written in Hindi was needed to be translated into English, and some English needs to be translated into Hindi. These kind of methods were used while I was in my primary education, talking about around 97. So that was English was very much, let's say, the development of English as a language after globalization was very much new. That's why the syllabi was designed accordingly. So this is the grammar translation method, where L1 is the key factor, target language is also, we can say, the L2 is the target language. Okay, so L2 is the target language, where you try to understand through reading, through writing, through practicing. Okay, so you definitely need to understand these concepts, because it was previously asked in your examination. Clear? Clear, everyone? So let us now quickly move on to the second theory of second language, that is direct method. Now this direct method is very much different from, let's say, the first method that we have discussed just now. Now the first method argued here, we have just now seen that first method argued here that there is a kind of rule that is there, we need to follow that. But the next theory argued that such is not the case, we should need to approach in an opposite way. Let's say I need to write here something. Let's say I'm writing here that Ram is eating a mango. Let's say, for example, Ram is eating a mango. Now according to our let's say the first method that we have seen, that learning method, which will argue that in order to form a sentence, first of all you need to have the subject and verb agreement. It means the rule that is there. So the first method will argue that first of all we need to master this method, then we need to switch upon here. But this direct method argues that we need to start from here, and from here we need to produce, we need to reach this word. For example, we need to say that Ram in the sentence is a noun, is here is a kind of verb, okay, an auxiliary or a kind of preposition you can say here. Eating is a kind of activity with ing, it means it is in a continuous tense. This mango is the object on which any kind of action is being performed. So Ram becomes the subject here. So through which you can also understand the basic language, and through this method you can also understand the language. I have been through this method, you definitely would have been through this method. This method is very much prominent when we talk about this modern education, because this modern education comes with the advantage of this smart screen on which I am I am teaching you guys. Okay, so ironic here. So this direct method says that L2 always needs to be learned just by practicing all those aspects that are there through example. Now there was a question there that what is direct method, whether it is deductive or whether it is inductive. Now if I ask you about this, is so much understandable question, whether you know about what is deductive approach and what is inductive approach. Reason being, because if you say that deductive approach is defined as this one, inductive approach is defined as this one. Now how will you be able to answer that what is direct method, whether it is inductive or whether it is deductive? Okay, so you can quickly understand here. Let us quickly have a look to this particular concept because it was asked in your examination. Now when we talk about this inductive method, we all know I means invention. It means something you have invented, now you are trying to apply it to the universal. Yeah, so it means this kind of sentence that you can say here, Ram is eating a mango. Through this particular sentence, you are trying to understand the grammar of this particular sentence, that Ram is the subject here, is a kind of preposition or auxiliary verb here, eating is a kind of activity in which this subject is engaged in. So when you try to understand these kind of let's say if you try to understand this sentence and try to understand it through this universal, it means we are moving towards this particular to this universal. Yeah, so this particular to universal is called inductive approach. We all know, bottoms up. Yeah, so the correct answer in that sense will be that this direct method will be inductive in nature. It means it will invent something, then from there on it will try to apply it to, let's say, the universal. For example, in this sentence, first of all I have written down a sentence, a particular sentence, and I am trying to understand this language through this universal, the idea of grammar that is there. This is called the inductive approach. That's why I always say you need to understand what is inductive and what is deductive. Now if you try to understand, let's say if you first of all try to understand this grammar here, first of all you will understand this grammar here, and after learning that any present continuous tense can be written as, let's say for example, a subject can be there, and if it is a continuous tense it must be having ing, then what you are trying to do here, you are trying to apply this universal rule that is there, and from this universality you are trying to form a particular sentence. So whenever you try to form a particular sentence from those universal, what you are doing, you are narrowing down all those information that is there. Yeah, you are deducing. It means you are acting in a deductive approach. So this method, direct method, becomes the inductive approach, and that grammar translation method becomes the deductive approach. Please do not forget this detail. It was asked so many times in your examination. Clear? Now let us quickly move on to some features that is teaching is done in target language. Let's say direct method. It means that you will try to engage, first of all, you will try to engage an audience first of all through writing a sentence in that language only. What you are seeing here, you are only dealing yourself with English sentence only, not like in this case, for example, in previous case when I talked about this Hindi to English and English to Hindi translation. Yeah, so that's why this target language is the mode of teaching in our direct method. Number one, grammar 2 is taught inductively. Number 2, it means inductive means what? Inductive means from particular to the general. Yeah, so number 3, pictures and demonstrations. Yeah, like the way I'm writing down here, and also teacher and student communicate in the question and answer form. This is that let's say I will ask, and there are some method also. For example, something will ask that how are you, then you will say I'm doing fine, I'm doing well. So this is the kind of response that you will give in the L2 language. So this is the direct method. You will be asked questions in English and you need to answer in that mode only. So this is the kind of practice of the direct method. Now let us quickly move on to the next method that we have, and that is the dogma language teaching. Now one time they have asked about who is the founding father of dogma language teaching. Remember, Scott Thornberry is the founder of this dogma language teaching. Yeah. So what is dogma language teaching? Dogma language teaching is a kind of communicative approach. It means whenever you try to, let's say there is a kind of method that is out there. While I was engaged in my previous organization, there was a system, a person who is, let's say, whose L1 was Hindi and L2 was English language. So person was suggested a video, a particular class was designed for them so that they can have a look to that video. They will understand how those two people are talking in a language in the video, so that he will also understand what are the desired way through which or in which he needs to perform his action through language. Yeah. So this is the kind of dogma language teaching which was very much popularized by Scott Thornbury. Yeah. So it means it is a communicative approach to language teaching that encourages teaching without textbook and focuses on conversational communication. Like I said just now, that the candidates are exposed with all those kind of videos that are there, and after exposing, they try to understand how an individual responds towards a particular kind of question that is there, or let's say a particular kind of response that an individual demands. For example, hi, good morning. Then a person will say a very, very good morning to all of you. How are you? I hope you are doing well. Now the other person will reply, I am doing well, what about you? So this kind of dialogue, these kind of conversation are a part of this dogma language teaching, where you try to avoid the textbook and you only focuses upon, let's say, the kind of practice language, the language that an individual performs in any visual aid or any, let's say, simulative approach. Yeah, this simulative approach. Simulative. This is the dogma language teaching, very much important from your NET and JRF perspective. If you want to take a screenshot, quickly take it. Yeah, quickly. Yeah, practical knowledge. Okay. So basically, it is a kind of teaching which is approach based upon the conversation. Yeah. So two people are engaged in a conversation, you're watching it, and you're also learning that how you also need to respond in that particular language that you are trying to learn here. Yeah. So everyone clear? This was the dogma language teaching. Now quickly everyone, those who are here. Now the next one also it was asked, and this NS Prabhu. Okay, this NS Prabhu is a very prominent theorist when we talk about this language acquisition. Now this task-based language learning is nothing. When I ask some questions, let's say for example, let us quickly understand it through one kind of example. Now quickly comment here whether you are understanding this entire theory that we are discussing. Quickly comment here yes or no. Everyone who are present here, quickly say yes or no whether you are understanding it or not. Quickly, whether you are understanding it or not. Yeah. So this JRF Pallavi says yes sir. So this yes sir here is a kind of, let's say for example, if I give you a task that, let's say, if you have understood till now, quickly comment here what do you mean by morpheme. Now you will give a kind of response, yeah, through your comments, just like you did now. So this is called the task-based language learning. It means you try to judge the behavior, you try to understand the influence, how much you had on the person by giving any kind of practice, any kind of task that is there. Now this is not very much new. For example, let's say whenever a person applies for army, whenever a person applies for any official, let's say designation that is out there, he first of all need to pass through, need to train through all those systems, all those, let's say, desired behavior that are there. Now Lipsna very much famous for UPSC, we all know about it. Okay, so this training also consists of some kind of task. Okay, let's say for example, there is a famous while I was in class 9th, there was a trip organized by Sainik School Nagrota. Yeah, I was there in my class till class 10. So one trip was organized to Air Force Station Pune. The first time when I visited there, this Air Force Station, so while I visited there, this Indian Military Academy, yeah, IMA also Dehradun, and also this Military Air Force Station, we have that in Pune, a large base of Air Force Station. So while I was there, I met a pilot, and he talked about this, that whenever we we are done with our training, we are dropped into, let's say, in a forest for around 30 to 45 days. Yeah, and we are given a task, and the task is simply to survive there and to come back to the hostel. Now this morphe is small. Yeah, so this kind of task is also we can also apply it to the language, that you are given to do something, you are given to engage something through your action or through your understanding, and through that you try to understand a language. Let's say, for example, if I talk about the content of this the content of this classroom, and if I ask some questions on the bell, let's say by saying that kindly revise. Let's say, for example, we have scheduled a rapid fire tomorrow. Now that rapid fire is a kind of task for you guys. Reason being, because I just wanted to assess, or I want to assess how much understanding you have gathered till now when we talk about this topic, language and pedagogy. So this is called the task-based learning. Now when we try to apply it to the language, it will become the task-based language learning. There is a kind of activity, there is a kind of task there. When we will fulfill it, you will qualify for it. Yeah, so this is the method of task-based language learning. Yeah, it can be, let's say, for example, visiting a doctor, conducting interview, or calling customer. These are called the let's say, for example, if you have some problem, if you're facing some problem while you're a subscriber to some channel, what you will do, you will talk to the customer care. Yeah, and you will give them a task, they will try to complete it, and then the process will again resume. So this is yes sir, I watched one video on geography channel on Hotstar. Yeah, so this is called the task-based learning, popularized by N.S. Prabhu. Very much important. Please do not skip this detail. Yeah? Now we will quickly move on to the next, that is audiolingual. Now this audiolingual was also very much popular, let's say for quite a few days ago. Reason being, because this audiolingual method, it means there will be audio. Okay, you will try to understand the particularities of that language through the audio. This was very much popular in our First World War, where the learner tried to understand the language of the, let's say, other country. Yeah? We have discussed about it when we were talking about, let's say, literary theory and criticism. So since time is, time is very much limited, and we also started, I think, 5 or 7 minutes late for today's class. Yeah, so we will quickly scroll through these. For example, like this audiolingual method, where this language, this L2 language is acquired through audio. Language is for communication, is using the natural order, that is listening, writing, reading, and speaking. So all these theories are very much common, they are not very much different. So I have only included those methods which are very much important from net perspective. For example, phonetic grouping, lexical, grammatical, semantic, or structure. For example, when you try to understand phonetic grouping, it means we have talked about the phoneme, how phoneme alters the meaning when we try to utter a particular kind of alphabet. Yeah, this lexical means how any particular word try to form through all those let's say lexemes that are there, the smallest part of a language, morpheme. This grammatical grouping, for example, the kind of structure that you will notice on this smart screen. Yeah, this semantic grouping, the kind of structure when we talk about the formation of a sentence. Yeah, this structure grouping, a kind of grammatical understanding, a kind of so there is a much practice of dialogue of every situation. Yeah, okay, so these are the structural approach. It means what does it mean? Structure means you are just trying to understand the structure, and when you try to understand the structure, you need to understand its basic, it's, let's say, it's medium, or it's hard, or it's difficult, or most advanced. Yeah, proficient, beginner, whatsoever you can say. So this structural approach is very much important when we talk about English as a language in our present day. Now this bilingual method, where you will have an audio, you will also have, let's say, for example, you will also have a written format. So bilingual means, let's say, for example, L1 and L2, you are kind of switch between these kind of languages that is there. For example, you will present something, then you will practice on it, then you will produce. So these kind of method that is there, this is called the bilingual method. When you try to combine two methods in order to acquire the let's say the second language that are out there. Okay, principle is the meaning of new words, phrases, idioms. Yeah, so this SSC examination, remember SSC examination, GATE examination, these are these examinations always carries itself with 1 or 2 questions from this bilingual part. It means they will give you a question just to understand about that how how better you can present, how better you can understand those statements that are there. Yeah, so this is the structure of gate. Now these word phrases, idioms are also asked in that examination because they are very much basic when we talk about that particular designation. So this bilingual method very much important. L1 is also used, here see, L1 is used only by the teacher to explain vocabulary and phrases, so that SSC medium person, those who are working for, let's say, preparing for an examination, they try to understand English through Hindi, even in present day also. Those who do not have that kind of education or that kind of time, let's say for example leisure time for study due to some kind of responsibility or any helplessness, you can say there, okay, so they all try to understand these structures in L1 language, in Hindi language. Okay, so this is the bilingual method that we have discussed. Yeah, so in today's class we have talked about this natural method, that acquiring of language, and we have talked about the learning of language. In acquiring of language through natural method, we have seen Bao theory, Poo theory, we have also seen Ye Ho theory, we have seen Ding Dong theory. So these kind of theory also suggests that how language grows naturally through all those physical actions that are there in our surroundings. Yeah, and later on we have also seen, for example, like how scientific methods, how through that lab experiment methods, how through that smart screen, that through technology, through all those equipments that are there, through which you can expose yourself to the L2 language whenever we talk about it. So in today's class we have discussed around these 2 questions, or 1 question is definitely from this portion. So I would request you that please, if you have not understood till now, kindly go through this video one more time, okay, and get it done. Then definitely you will be able to score 1 or 2 marks. Now in tomorrow's class, what we are gonna do, we will just devote 15 minutes to understand what is Pidgin, what is Creole, what is sociolect, what is slang, what is register, what is idiolect. Yeah, so these kind of languages, that how these kind of languages, for example, we will also talk about Chomsky and competence and performance. They have all asked about it a million times. Yeah, so please do watch this session and try to complete your this unit that we that language and pedagogy that we have. Yeah, and so if you are not of कौन unit से tomorrow question दीजिएगा, बस only from language and pedagogy. Yeah, only from language and pedagogy. So if you're not a part of IFAS till now, if you are pondering upon it, you can be a part of it, okay, and because examinations can happen sooner or later. Yeah, so on that note, I will rest today's session. We will again meet tomorrow, and we are going to have a rapid fire, and also along with it some important aspects and questions which are very frequently asked in your language and pedagogy section. Yeah? So take care, happy learning, and try to revise this section. Yeah? Take care.